psalm, waiting in the depths. I waited in the depths. But that one word waited feels so small, so incomplete. It barely captures a fragment of the true experience. Waiting usually suggests a simple, measurable passage of time, like sitting in a quiet room until a clock strikes the hour, knowing that an end you can foresee is coming. You endure it with quiet anticipation. This was not like that. Down here, in this place of heavy shadow and profound stillness, time itself seemed to fall apart. It was like a thread pulled from a sweater, unspooling into a vast, tangled expanse with no clear beginning or end. Moments bled into an eternity. The soul itself felt like it was unraveling right along with it, forced to confront its own brokenness. It was a long, dark vigil, a season spent in the shadowed valleys of trial. There were no clocks on the wall, no sun rising or setting, no changing of seasons to mark the days. There was only this lasting, enduring pause, a single breath held in the chest of the universe. Life's usual rhythm, which normally pushes us forward, slowed down to an almost complete stop. It was a time to think, to face the raw feeling of being exiled from the light, to truly and deeply consider what it means to be human and lost. The walls around me weren't just blank stone. In the dim light, they seemed to be etched with the faint, ghostly outlines of ancient stories, like the remnants of forgotten warnings or prophecies I couldn't quite read. Strange forms would emerge from the hazy air, seeming to whisper about innocence that had been lost and the hard, painful wisdom that only comes through suffering. It all evoked those quiet, stinging revelations that arise only when you are completely and totally isolated. Small trickles of water traced paths down these surfaces. They weren't dark or menacing. They were surprisingly clear, like simple overlooked truths you've ignored for too long. They carried the faint, subtle scent of distant gardens, a smell that brought a wave of painful nostalgia, a memory of joy blended with the sharp sting of being so far from it. It was a powerful sensory reminder of a paradise I once knew, but which now felt impossibly, hopelessly distant. The ground under my feet was not a menacing mire, not the quicksand I had feared, which tries to swallow you whole. Instead, it was a soft, yielding earth. It was a strange comfort. It reminded me that real growth often comes from this tension, this difficulty, the same way that fertile soil has to nurture both the beautiful rose and the sharp thorn. This ground held me gently but firmly, as if it was inviting me to reflect on my life rather than trying to trap me forever. It felt like every step I took, even in this crushing darkness, was a necessary prelude to eventually climbing out, a deliberate movement in God's grand design of restoration. Every movement stirred subtle shifts in the air, not draining my strength in a cruel way, but prompting me to look deeper inside myself. Each breath felt like a quiet prayer, a rhythm that mirrored the disrupted, broken order of my soul, trying to find harmony again. I stopped speaking aloud not because I was afraid, but out of a deep sense of reverence. I knew that voices in such a place carried the weight of eternal echoes, as if bridging the gap between my mortal world and the transcendent. Silence became my sacred companion. Shadows gathered around me, but they weren't threatening monsters. They were more like subtle forms, perhaps souls in transition, their shifting outlines suggesting the human condition, neither wholly condemned nor fully redeemed, but stuck in the balance. They were figures in a much larger, unfinished tapestry. They drew near, not with gaping mouths or threats, but with a quiet, persistent presence. They murmured reminders of my shortcomings, my failures, my sins. Their tones stirred up an inner debate, a place where different voices argued for my soul's loyalty, forcing a dialogue between my weakness and my will to stand. They traced the vulnerabilities in my resolve, not pressing hard enough to shatter me, but just enough to reveal them, forcing me to see the truth. It was a necessary, painful unveiling before any true healing could begin. I urged myself to remain steadfast, to be like the enduring foundation of faith. I tried to emulate a stone that withstands the elements without lamenting, that persists through the ages without questioning its purpose, simply embodying quiet resilience. But I am not a stone. I am a living soul, woven from divine imagination, capable of both falling and rising, a being destined for transformation. These depths do not merely contain, they instruct. They were teaching me the art of endurance, schooling my spirit in how to be patient, even when nothing seemed to be happening, showing me that true strength often blooms in the soil of complete surrender. Time itself transforms in that place. Minutes became long contemplative voids. Hours blended into vast reflective expanses where earthly clocks no longer mattered. My heartbeat slowed to a meditative rhythm, a pulse I felt more in my soul than in my body, echoing a quiet chant that tried to align itself with the pulse of creation itself. My form felt anchored, as if the pull of the earth was inviting me to be grounded in humility, connecting me to this underground sanctuary, a place where the divine whispers through the most ordinary and broken things. And in that quietude it spoke, not just from the outside, but from the inner chambers of my own conscience. The truth rose like a vision, a place where my mind was conversing with the eternal, unveiling layers of reality I had kept veiled for years. I heard my own transgression speaking, not in desperate screaming pleas, but in measured, clear recountings of fact. My pride reflected on its former heights, now humbled. My desire contemplated its fleeting warmth, now turned into an instructive, cold memory. Every past choice revisited me as a guide, presenting its evidence with thoughtful clarity, building a new path toward enlightenment, illuminating the way forward. If the heavens sing with harmonious choirs, this place offers a different kind of song, a discourse of introspection, guiding the soul toward amendment, a gentle correction leading back to wholeness. My senses searched desperately for any sound, any resonance that was free from self reproach. I yearned for affirmation, for the soothing balm of acceptance, but reproach, guilt, and failure dominated the narrative. Or so it appeared. It seemed that way right up until the pivotal shift, the moment when grace began its subtle, quiet reclamation. Then a novel occurrence unfolded. It was not an immediate, blinding illumination. It was a subtle alteration in the ambience, like the tuning of instruments just before a celestial symphony begins, pure and transcendent. It heralded a turn from shadow to substance. The atmosphere warmed faintly. The essence of decay and despair began to give way to a refreshed clarity. The burdens I carried felt lighter, as if the literal weight of my sin had begun to dissolve in the presence of an unseen mercy. It was an attunement, but it was not my doing. It was His. It was a divine receptivity that bridged the chasm between us, drawing my finite, broken self into His infinite wholeness. You, Lord, inclined toward me. You leaned down with purposeful grace, entering my depths not as a distant, judgmental observer, but as an active, hands on Redeemer. A beacon appeared in the expanse, not a torch held in a hand, but a guiding radiance that was inherent in your very essence. It parted the obscurity like a sacred veil being torn in revelation, unveiling truths that had been long concealed. Your light cleaved the dimness like a surgeon's blade, precise and healing. It was a brilliance that surpassed any earthly flame. The depths themselves quivered, as if the foundational elements of the earth remembered their Creator, vibrating in harmonious acknowledgement, resonating with the ancient song of creation. Your hands appeared not as ordinary limbs, but as embodiments of a story. They were inscribed with the chronicles of sacrificial devotion, bearing living witness to love's ultimate expression. They mapped out an affection that was authenticated, proven, and sealed through suffering. I saw hands marked by piercings, fortified by timelessness, hands that had borne the weight of worlds. They were the very symbols of redemption's cost. Those hands enveloped me, undeterred by the earth's muddy grip. They elevated me with unwavering resolve, lifting not just my body, but my spirit. The soil itself seemed to protest, sighing as it released a cherished captive, yielding me to a higher authority. I was positioned upon a foundation, not just any stone, the foundation, an immutable base where stability is absolute, a rock that withstands all storms. My legs, which had grown accustomed to the instability of the mire, suddenly discovered firmness. I found a secure footing, a place to stand amid life's earthquakes, grounding me in unshakable truth. The terrain below did not shift or deceive. It remained constant, a faithful anchor in all the uncertainty. My voice, parched and hesitant, felt incapable of melody, and yet you instilled a chant in me. It was not a soothing, soft cradle song. It was an ode, a powerful anthem resonating with both sorrow and triumph. Its tones bridged the gap from my deepest lament to my highest exaltation, weaving a tapestry of restored joy. Its harmonies did not just drift idly on the air, they had impact. They vibrated against the portals of my confinement, fracturing the barriers of despair into 1,000 fragments, scattering emerging light and hooked seeds on fertile ground. Many observed your deed. They bore witness to the metamorphosis, seeing the raw power of transformation. They beheld my marks, those faint lines along my limbs from the struggle, and the profounder ones upon my core, my heart. Each one was a chronicle of trials overcome, a story of survival etched in flesh. They perceived past the surface ugliness to discern mercy's script in every trace, a heavenly inscription of renewal, the divine artistry of God at work. The mortal realm, the world, deems them defects, flaws to be hidden, but the celestial realm views them as proclamations, as symbols of grace's triumph, as badges of a hard won victory. And seeing this, they trusted. They trusted the one who ventures into the depths to revise our conclusions, to rewrite our endings. They embraced the saga of restoration and joined in the great narrative of hope. Blessed, then, are not the refined and the polished, not those who see loveliness only in the void of flawlessness. Blessed are those who embrace the fractured. Blessed are those who remember the destitute, the ones whose identities are fading from collective memory. Blessed are those who offer solace where apathy reigns, who extend hands of compassion into the darkness. Adversity still lingers. I can discern it in my peripheral vision, like sentinels atop distant walls, their gazes watchful. But your compassion, Lord, is swift, potent, prompt, a vigilant protector, always ready to intervene. Your unwavering affection serves as a barrier, a fortress crafted from resilience and sacrifice, sealed against the assaults of the night. My transgressions persist. They still try to ascend, like a flurry of winged shadows trapped in a tower, fluttering against the windows of my rationale with turbulent energy, yet they are unable to prevail. They circle and eddy, innumerable, pursuing re-entry through any unguarded crevice, tenacious in their disruption, but they are destined for defeat, because your contemplations for me, your plans for me, surpass them all. They are like a cosmic array of stars, a galaxy of sacred purpose, hidden by the storms of life, but illuminated nonetheless, infinite in their scope. I am destitute and requiring. I am poor and needy, not only in material things, but in spiritual vigor. I am deficient in the very completeness I seek, painfully aware of my limitations. I sense that I am a container that has been fractured, seeping the very radiance you infused into me. I am flawed in my ability to hold on to your goodness, yet I remain open, desperate for a refill. Inside my heart, certain compartments stay sealed, spaces where old apprehension and fear secure the entrance, fortified against any intrusion, but even they are gradually, slowly yielding to your presence. My core torments me. I am both the haunted house and the ghost inside, traversing my own personal phantoms, yet somehow finding your light even there. Yet you ingress, you come in, consistently. You are undaunted by the residue of my sin, unswayed by the aroma of prolonged grief. You claim the broken places as your domain, redeeming what I had abandoned, transforming what I thought was garbage. The adversary encircles me, proclaiming that I am almost concluded, almost erased. Their murmur resembles the slithering of a reptile approaching in the grass. When will he finally succumb? When will creation forget his name? It is a sly question, infused with hopeful expectancy, but it is ultimately futile. Their visions for me shine not solely with animosity, but with a greedy, avaricious delight, as if my ruin is a feast they have long anticipated, a repast of my downfall, yet it is one they will not taste. One injury, however, pierces keener than all others: disloyalty. It did not come from a declared foe, but from the one who partook sustenance with me, the one who shared my bread, the one who occupied the opposite seat at the table, the steam from our cups ascending in the air betwixt our vessels, the one who comprehended my reflections when I ventured to utter them, the one I confided in with my vulnerabilities, the one I trusted with my heart. His strike was elevated against me. It was not a faltering accidental blow. It was deliberate, aimed, and intentional. The incision it wrought surpassed the depth of any metal, cleaving the connections of our lives with surgical accuracy, leaving a wound that time alone cannot heal. Yet you, Lord, with a benevolence as vast as an ocean surge, elevate me from the surface where that disloyalty felled me. You restore vigor to my frame, so I might respond to that harshness, not with reciprocal harshness, but with your benevolence, a paradoxical reaction that confounds the very nature of evil. And herein I perceive your satisfaction. My adversary's triumphant utterance is stifled before the exclamation can even depart their lips. You sustain me in my uprightness, notwithstanding the inscriptions my lapses have etched upon my essence. You overwrite my faults with your verity, erasing my errors with your love. You position me not in obscurity, but in the perpetual, unending radiance of your countenance, an everlasting enlightenment, a place of eternal day. Do not tarry, my God, for you are the one who transforms sepulchres into flourishing garden plots. You are the one who forges portals from the deepest abysses. You are the one who converts the protracted, endless obscurity into the very cradle for the aurora herself, generating revival from the barrenness and bringing life from the dead. I awaited, and you arrived. I lamented, and you inclined near. I descended, and you intercepted me. I am sustained. Amen. When despondency compressed upon me like the granite cover of a sarcophagus, the heavy stone lid of a tomb, you were present. Your essence did not waver or wane. You did not just arrive and depart. You remained, a steadfast anchor in the storm. When uncertainties bellowed sufficiently loud to agitate my very core, when fear scratched at the panes of my intellect, you ignited a beacon in the mist, not a mild, gentle luminescence, but a forceful rupture, a light lacerating through the obscuring gloom until veracity, the truth, cascaded over my vision like daybreak on an archaic, ruined metropolis, rousing remnants to vitality, awakening what was dormant and dead. You elevated me from transgressions as dense as sediment, their clasp firmer than interlaced fetters, and situated me on bedrock that no force can disintegrate, an enduring base, a refuge that is eternal. These marks that adorn me, they were formerly crimson with disgrace, but they have evolved into artifacts. They are my sacred relics, my evidence. They are proof that you have traversed into my personal devastation and exited with me, vital carrying me through the fire. When I contact them now, they resonate with recollection, not of anguish's dominion, but of triumph's advent. They are pulsating with conquest, alive with purpose. Through them I can address any who deem their own abyss overly profound, too deep for grace. These marks are my vital attestation, my living testimony, that the abyss possesses no conclusive final utterance when the divine intervenes. Your voice supersedes its assertions, declaring ultimate victory. Pardon me, Lord, for the quivers of my belief, for the frigid periods when I venture to deem you distant. Pardon the restlessness that causes me to overlook your impeccable, perfect chronology. Instruct me, Lord, that awaiting is not vacancy, it is not empty time, it is dynamic reliance. It is the elongation of aspiration's framework, the prolonging of conviction through the ordeal. It is the strengthening of the soul by stretching it. Permit my existence to proclaim, sans interruption, the labor you have fashioned. Let my life be a billboard for your redemption. Permit illumination to emanate via each rift, through every crack in my brokenness, so others might observe your grasp sustaining me, a manifest exhibition of benevolence, a light to the nations. When obscurity murmurs indictments against me, with orifices replete with cinders, place the blade of your word into my hold. Permit me to brandish it not in arrogance, but in the safeguard of verity, deflecting the deceptions, cutting through the lies. And when disloyalty arrives anew, perhaps this time donning a known, familiar grin, permit me to respond as you address the globe's disloyalty, with compassion immersed in affection's vital fluid, a salvific stream flowing to heal. Lord, I yearn for the moment when I shall stand without rupture before you, integral, cleansed, whole, my designation incised into the volume of existence by your own injured palm, perpetually engraved, eternally secure. Until that moment, maintain me in those identical marked palms. Permit me to persist, permit me to traverse, permit me to ascend, not on my individual potency, which is as particulate and small as a speck of dust, but on your essence, which is blaze and respiration unified, fire and breath together, invigorating the inanimate, breathing life into the dust. In the sacred name of the Redeemer, I beseech. Amen.